Hey man, welcome back to Man Time. Today's episode, we are going through framing in a barn dominium in a metal building and how to do that and all the tools that I've got and my mobile cart setup for framing. Welcome to Man Time. Okay, so framing in a metal building and how I'm doing it. So I've got these metal pillars running down the center of the building because obviously I had to build a second story and a mezzanine, and it's propped up right there. 12-inch W-beam coming across to support all those 8-inch purlin up there. But what I'm doing is I'm inlaying the 2x4s inside of this, so I'm taking up less square footage with these walls. But that's not really the point here. The point is all of the tools I had to basically gather up and assemble to do this job. Because what I'm doing, I'm anchoring it into the cement floor and just some of the stuff here. So we'll start off with kind of the basics, what you're going to need. First of all, a pancake compressor or compressed air compressor of some sort. I've got it hooked up to a generator since we're, for the most part, off-grid. I've got my Menevo HPT 3.5-inch 30 degree. I did a full video on this one. If you want to check that out back in the channel, subscribe to the channel, go back and look at some of the stuff that I was purchasing like coming up to this moment. One of the neatest things that I found are these. It's just called a 16-inch stud tool, tongue twister. So these perfectly line up like the 2x4s on either end from 16-inch on center. So no more measuring. This makes it really quick. So I've got everything like cut to length. I have a pile, and then I just start at one end and then use these tools on either side of the sill plate, top plate, and run my way down the stud wall, and all of the stuff is lined up right there. But yeah, I had to basically assemble all of this stuff, and I put it all on a cart here, because what I'm doing on the first stud, the first upright, what I'm doing is I'm drilling a hole, countersinking right in the center, and then screwing it to the top plate, sill plate. So I've got one drill for that. It's right over there. I didn't grab it. I just got done using it. But I'm trying to keep everything here. So I've got the screws that I'm screwing the top plate, sill plate to that very first and very last stud. I've got spare framing nails for the framing nailer. I've got a level to level everything up. And then to screw down into the ground, I went with quarter inch by 4-inch Tapcon, but I ended up ordering a bunch more because I just kind of wanted a little trial sample pack that I got from Home Depot. This one here with the quarter inch concrete screws. You're actually going to need a 3/16 inch 6-inch drill to go in conjunction with your hammer drill. But yeah, that is all kept here on the cart. And once I get to the point where I'm going to be, I stand it up and then immediately screw one in to one of the ends, and I'll just grab 2 or 3 and hook up the drill and set it to hammer right here on this cart, and then take it over there. And as soon as I stand it up, I've got that stuff like ready to go. Same thing when I'm doing the drilling and the screwing. I take just the amount that I'm going to need, go over there, use it, and then eventually bring it back here. But this cart then moves from stud wall to stud wall, and I've got everything that I need. One thing that I did notice was the uprights aren't perfectly up and down, and the reason for that was we were having to adjust a little bit to line up on center on these 12-inch beams. So down there on that end, we ended up being off by 1/2 inch or something like that. So we actually pushed or hammered that upright in a little bit, or a little bit that way. So it's off a little bit. But I'm making sure all of my walls are square true upright. But I am having to go through and finagle some stuff, so I've got a 6.5 inch 20 volt. Ended up getting this one, I think refurbished DCS 565. And this one has the, the stop. It's brushless, really nice. Same on this one. Now this one might be brushed, but yeah, 20 volt stuff here. And then for just screwing those screws in, I've got the 12 volt system there. And that one's actually a hammer drill as well. But that is basically all of the stuff that I've got here on this mobile cart that's kind of moving from stud wall to stud wall with me. I had kind of a central cart, but the mobile cart, where you can actually just kind of move it from place to place is really the best option. And it keeps everything up off the ground. That's really important when you're getting up in age, and having kind of just stuff laid out on the ground, having it organized, having it right at hand, where I can quickly grab anything and everything stays on the cart. Like if I walk away from the cart, I take all the stuff off me, put it on the cart, and then it stays, on the cart, because I'm bad about that. I'll be wearing stuff, and I'll go to do something, load wood into the wood stove, or switch the music, or whatever, distracted like a butterfly. But if I don't take this stuff out of my person or off of my person and put it on the cart, it gets laid various places throughout the shop here. But it's coming along pretty well. Like I said, other than the fact that some of these uprights are not perfectly up and down due to the fact that we manipulated them in doing all of this. I can see how framers, get a little irritated when the metal building isn't perfect. The metal building wasn't perfect to begin with, right? Like these runners going this way, the distance was off by as much as 2 inches from upright to upright. Where it's like one upright was out an inch, the other upright was out an inch, and then, coming back, they're pretty darn close though. To be within an inch on the line on either side, pretty darn good in my opinion, and it's manageable, right, to work around. And it's a whole lot easier to manipulate wood than it would be metal. So anyways, I'm going to get back to it. You guys get out there, have you some man time too. If you haven't already, think about subscribing, hitting that thumbs up. See you next time right here on Man Time.